Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Front Range 6 Meter group tonight. And we've got a really terrific presentation about how you can work the FM satellites using equipment you already have. And this is going to be presented by Clint, K6 LCS. He's been a ham since 1994, and he found his niche in the hobby working amateur satellites with minimal equipment and telling us all about it. He has served as a liaison between NASA, the ARIS team, and schools, coordinating amateur radio contacts between the International Space Station and the students. Professionally, Clint was a sales manager for ADI, Premier Communications, Prime, and worked for Motorola Commercial, two-way, for a couple of years. And he worked for Ham Radio Outlet a couple more years. He resides in Jurupa Valley, California, with his wife, Karen, who's also on the meeting tonight. And their new addition to the family, Huck, a 2-year-old, 75-pound lab. It's all yours, Clint.
Oh my goodness, what an intro. I did an informal survey of everyone here, and the average, let's see, double click on that, share computer sound is stereo, and play a slideshow. Whew. Anyway, I took a informal survey. It's about 650 years of experience in the amateur industry here, amateur hobby here, and I'm wondering, why am I here? We have folks who have worked on Apollo. We have folks who work with. So let's just go back to the beginning of your ham experience. Simple handmade Yagis, a watt or two, and a couple FM crossband repeaters floating in the sky. All right, I live in California, so please read this for me. It's my disclaimer this evening. Please know that the things I'm going to tell you in the next 4 hours, they might be outdated day after tomorrow. We might lose a satellite. We might gain a satellite. The software programs I recommend, there's many more. Just know when you search the web, make sure what you're looking for is dated. I had a scoutmaster really irritated with me about a year and a half ago. He had an assemblage of 500 people. He couldn't work satellite AO51. AO51, of course, passed away 9 years ago. But if you look on the web, easy to work satellites, whew, there it is. So please, my website was last updated 75 minutes ago. AMSAT, North America, AMSAT.org, ARIS, AMSAT in England, AMSAT overseas. Make sure that whatever you're looking at is dated, that they respect you enough, that they date your image, your information for you. All right, let me get to Colorado. There you are. There's your site. Working amateur satellites. But before we begin, we're on Zoom. And please know that we have some housekeeping hints right here, housekeeping tips. Restrooms, if you just leave the door, go down the hallway, you'll find a restroom for the evening. And meals are provided for you tonight by WTOZX. Bill, thank you very much. If you go down the other way down the hallway and find the refrigerator, anything in there is yours this evening to eat. Bill, thank you very much for that. And do not submit any bill to your treasurer for this. Thank you, Bill. What a guy. Oh, and please, no classified documents in the bathroom, please. Sorry, Rick. Sorry. Okay. Hey, I'm wearing a Van Gogh, The Starry Night t-shirt, and I live on the left coast. What are you expecting? We're not going to be serious. Let's just have some fun. You all saw this in the Gazette this morning. I hope. That's your club. Okay, I guess not. Something I found out last week, the distance between the Earth and the sun is 3 CVS receipts. I'm sorry, I think that's funny. Okay, but seriously, the James Webb Telescope, this is 2,000 light years away. These phenomenal images, Dr. Jane Rigby, just a brilliant astrophysicist, it's her baby, it's her project, and I have a special treat for you this evening. I know Dr. Jane's favorite joke. Would you like to hear it? Why can't you trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Paul knew that. Paul knew that. Okay, that's for real. That's for real. Dr. Jane Rigby, look her up. She is phenomenal. So why can we get this type of imagery 2,000 light years away, but here with your tax dollars, we can't get better than that 20 feet away? Why? Just one of those mysteries of life. Mysteries of life. This is a sad photo from last month. This is the helicopter on Mars and a broken rotor. And there was an image just this last week. Ingenuity ended its mission last month. It was in the belly of Perseverance. It was only meant to perform 5 experimental test flights over 30 days. It ended up performing 72 flights over 3 years. How proud can we be of that project? There it is. There it is. Anybody remember the movie Babe? Okay, that'll do, Ingenuity. That'll do. What is that? Oh, this is when the rover turned its camera around and shot a picture of Ingenuity, and just like a bad a vacationer's photo, it chopped the head off of the person. That's a real image, and that's a Photoshop. But just that'll do, Ingenuity. That'll do. Just last week, you saw that we landed the United States and a private firm landed on the moon. The very left foot there hit the ground first. And so this is now laying this way on the moon. The bottom is the moon surface. So that's too bad. And this image was just released like 8 hours ago. This is the landing strut performing its primary task, absorbing the first contact with the lunar surface to preserve the integrity of the mission. Meanwhile, the liquid methane and liquid oxygen engine is still throttling, which provided stability. The company believes these 2 insights from this photo have just gently leaned this into the surface of the moon, and we might be preserving some ability to return some scientific data. So watch this project. It did fall over, but Intuitive Machines just released this photo just a few hours ago, and yeah, we'll get data from it. We'll get data from it. That's an honest to God picture. Yeah, that was just released seriously about 8 hours ago. And of course, 3 years ago, we were all watching this, the first image from the Mars rover, Perseverance. Then we went to bed and the second image came down. We were all pleased to see that. Bill is okay. Thank you, Bill. And then overnight, the first color images, the high-res color images from Mars came down. Just gorgeous imagery. Mesa, Arizona. Mesa, Arizona. Yes, indeed. And then on April 1st, last April 1st of last year, a top secret finding, the lost socks from the dryer. They're up there. They're up there. Okay. Okay, guys. Bill give me the mic for 3 hours. You're stuck with this. The Perseverance turned its cameras around and looked at Earth, the little dot there at the Earth, and it turned its cameras around and looked at Earth. Okay. Visual gag. We all got that? Okay. 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 If you go to nasa.gov, look at photos of the day, you are guaranteed to come back with a new screensaver or a new wallpaper. Just gorgeous, gorgeous images that our tax dollars are paying for, and tax dollars from other countries, the other participating countries also. Ooh, look at that. There's a tear in that shield. I never noticed that before. I never noticed that before. I've given the show 172 times. I've never noticed that before. Wow. Thank you, Colorado. That's not me, but boy, I wish it were. The cupola, just some gorgeous, gorgeous images. There's always been amateur radio gear on board the ISS. Most astronauts, no matter their country of origin, are licensed ham operators. This is a project 3 or 4 years ago where they substituted a jumper cable that was going to feed a future commercial project. It just blew away our 2 meter 440 antenna on the Columbus module. They apparently did not get the jumper cable at HRO. And there is the jumper cable they reinstalled for us, and we're back to normal. They like amateur radio. They like talking to the students on Earth. They like talking to us. They just don't have a lot of free time to do it. And you will hear yelps of glee from Southern California and also your email feeds for ARIS, AMSAT, and NASA when amateur radio time is available for us. 2 years ago, this didn't make the news I thought it should. Russia sent a cargo mission to the ISS. That's cool. It docked successfully. That's cool. But then its thrusters came on. This is serious. This turned the ISS more than a revolution and a half. It wasn't violent. No one was hurt, but something definitely wrong. The Russian module did not know where it was. And if you go to, there's the Russian module itself. My wife just put it in the text box. You don't need to write anything down tonight except for this URL. If you want to hear Houston and Russia, the US, Russia, Cold War. If you want to hear professional, just some phenomenal communications between the two countries trying to stabilize this. And I'm just old enough to remember this is just so Cold Warish, but you'll be so proud of the professionalism between Russia and Houston as they stabilize the ISS for us. So tinyurl.com/parkingjob. There's 15 minutes of audio there that you'll hear. That's my hair is raising on my arm. This is a little problem. This is leaking. Think of it as a radiator leak in space on the Russian module, which they're going to need to fix. Things happen. We're not sure if it's if it hit some debris or what exactly occurred. And speaking of debris, there's thousands and thousands of pieces of debris up at low Earth orbit where these things are. Where our satellites are for amateur radio, where the ISS is, where the Chinese space station is. We are tracking 20,000, everything from the size of a nut to a screwdriver to that hand drill to a tool pack to used expended boosters from old rockets. We're going to hear a lot in the next 10 years about literally vacuuming up this stuff and getting it out of the way of projects we want to leave existing. Two of my favorite photographs. You've seen this type of an image before, but this is the silhouette of the shuttle Endeavour in her final mission as it is approaching the ISS. This was STS-130. I've seen this 100 times. I've seen this more than that. It's just an extraordinary photograph. All right, someone please unmute themselves and tell us please what this apparatus is.
One of the Deep Space Network.
Parks.
Oh, who said Parks? Who said Parks? Was that Mr. Latham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. This is the Parks 64-meter radio telescope down under. This gave us those gorgeous, wonderful, grainy black and white images from Apollo 11. But look right under the focus cabin. Still glinting in sunlight, streaking from right to left. That's the Space Shuttle Orbiter Atlantis on her last mission. How cool is that? Bill, it gets better. Look to the right. That streak of light down there is the International Space Station. They just undocked 3 minutes. They're 3 minutes apart. So I'm sorry. I'm a heart patient. I can't get this excited. But this is a phenomenal photograph. I need to thank John Sarkissian of the Parks Observatory for letting me share this. Just a phenomenal image. Just us without a shuttle program anymore. Yeah, this is just history, and it's just to me, it's just a wonderful photograph. All right, folks, if your significant other says your shack is getting a little messy, just let him or her know that it's not really that bad. This is the networking room aboard the ISS. Here is the Columbus module, the US module. In the circle there is the Kenwood TMG 710GA that's giving us crossband repeater capabilities. But, it's a little messy, but no big deal. This a few of you recognize. You'll never admit it. 1956, an AT&T console. Yeah. So the heads are nodding, and that's just disgusting. Oh my God! There's a picture of Bill, an old shack back in the 50s. Way to shoot, Bill. WT0DX. Okay, sorry. When tubes were popular, when tubes were running. We're still just getting intro here, so we're waiting for more people to show up. HRO, this is a demonstration day. When you work these amateur radio satellites, these crossband repeaters, FM 2 meter 440 crossband repeaters in the sky, it's best if you work them in true full duplex mode. That's defined as being able to hear the downlink from the satellite as you key your mic. We don't have a currently available HT that does that well in both VHF up, UHF down, and vice versa. The last one we had was a Kenwood THD 72, not the 74, not the new 75, but the 72 is a classic, is a true duplex radio. So while you're beginning, use two radios. I'm here in the foreground with my demonstration set up. There's a guy in the background in the white hat. He's got an FT60 just with open audio, 20 feet away, so he's not feeding into my transmissions. I'm wearing a little mini boom headset from Heil to hear and talk. This is the 171st?
Oh, I thought we were 178.
Oh, 171st or 172nd time we've given this show. We've been on Ham Nation several times, on Tom's W5KUB broadcast, and most importantly, we're in Colorado this evening. We're going to talk about ergonomics. These handheld antennas that we're talking about, they're 3 or 4 pounds. They can put some stress if you're working satellite passes that are 10 or 12 minutes long. They put stress on your wrist, elbow, shoulder. We'll talk about ergonomics later. A few of those folks that saw me at HRO in Anaheim, my wife is responsible for this. She brought me a Dremel tool for my birthday, and I had to start cutting up something. But think of this, 2 little lithium polymer batteries inside. It now has USB ports on it, of course. It is sturdy. It'll seat belt into your front seat. Sturdy handle. It's insulated. What a cool little go box. Any FM, or excuse me, any little transceiver on top. Just a cool little box. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, engineers. Okay, engineers. To shows, I'll take my egg beater antenna. I'll put it up on a rotator
Souffle antenna.
and call it my souffle antenna. Okay, yeah, okay, all right. Egg beaters are wonderful conversation pieces. They'll draw attention to your station, but you want some gain and directionality for working these 2-meter 440 crossband repeaters in the sky. The $15 tape measure beam you have in the rafters will outperform the $300 M-squared egg beater. Yeah. Here is my QSL card. This is at the Los Angeles County Fair a few years ago. We just worked 3 countries with 2 watts. I didn't say counties, didn't say cities. We worked Mexico, the US, and Vancouver, British Columbia, with about a 45-degree elevation pass of a satellite. The guy on the right is not a ham. He's intoxicated. He's looking for the little people in my hand talking. He had no idea what was going on.
He's really intoxicated.
He was really intoxicated. This is what got me turned on to this aspect of the hobby. With a handheld, we've got a couple birds, including the International Space Station, that you can work with hardly any power at all. Any ARRL members here this evening? Outstanding, Bill. Thank you. ARRL, it's an organization, there's some polarization in fans and those who don't like it. I just personally like to know what's happening to my hobby before it occurs, as opposed to hearing and reading in the news that something has occurred to us. So ARRL for me in Southern California keeps up on that and is a good advocate. It's our largest lobbying body for amateur radio interests in North America. Who's not a ARRL member yet? A couple. And who just refuses to raise their hands at Zoom meetings? 2 of you. Okay. Ask your fellow club members. ARRL benefits. You get magazines. You have. Hey, you get a new email address. Your call signed at ARRL to get forwarded. Anyone using the equipment insurance plan that ARRL offers? This is Paul. This is good stuff. It's got a club liability policy for you. It'll cover your members going to and from events. It'll cover the repeater in the backyard, and there's a separate policy that'll cover the repeater up on the hill. For personal loss, mobile rigs in California are not automatically covered with auto insurance. You got to buy a rider. The premium for this insurance was $1.50, maybe it's $1.60 per $100 evaluation, $50 deductible per loss, current day replacement cost. That's the kicker, current day replacement cost. I've been with State Farm for more than 40 years. They cannot meet this premium. So ARRLinsurance.com for the club, for you as individuals. Make sure your homeowner's policy or auto policy may or may not cover your rigs and your equipment in your car. It covers all my computers I'm using tonight. It covers my laptops when I'm out in the field. Yeah, so very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. ARRLinsurance.org.
Hey, Clint,
Yes.
I've got this 60-foot dish in my backyard. Is that covered?
Please talk to Cheryl. Your first couple contacts will be all email. She's not going to hire an administrative assistant to do that. She'll read it. She'll get back to you and offer you her phone number. Yes, but if it's on your private property, I bet, yeah, she'll have something for you. She'll have something for you. And then because the repeaters on the hill are usually in a commercial cavity or something, it's a different policy. But the club liability coverage is very, very attractive for a club, especially if you have events. Again, it'll cover ask your attorneys for certainty, but it'll cover your members to and from events, as well as things happening if somebody gets injured with your equipment at an event. I also volunteer for AMSAT, Amateur Satellites in Space. We were founded in 1969 as a nonprofit. Our mission is to build satellites and to disseminate information about them to the planet. Speaking of the planet, we are international in scope with more than 20 chapters worldwide. We are also a 501c3. Yes, indeed, you can put us in your will. And the only people you'll upset with doing that will be the grandchildren. But we'll be gone, so it's okay. It's okay. And then there's ARIS, Amateur Radio Aboard the International Space Station. Not only does this organization get amateur gear on the ISS for us, but they also coordinate those wonderful interviews you've seen with students on the ground in a stadium or in an auditorium or in a classroom, speaking with an astronaut who is circling the Earth aboard the ISS. We perform more than 1,600 of those wonderful contacts with students. ARISS is right in the first third of a 10-part program of equipment sending up there to the ISS, all for your and my benefit. All for your and my benefit. So there they all are. I know you already have these bookmarked, but ARIS, AMSAT, and ARRL.org. They're all .orgs. Anybody working with Raspberry Pis? Anybody, any Pi interest? We have 2 Raspberry Pi 4Bs up aboard the ISS. I have these, I don't know, where is it? It's here. I have the exact same Pi. I just don't have that $3,000 case that was mandated by the space agencies involved. But there they are in the Columbus module. The new ones we have up there are the 4B with the wonderful Pi telescope lens, and also with the enhanced Sense hat. Most of the European Space Agency students are involved with this. Here's if you go to astro-pi.org, you will see a magnificent marketing, learning, and teaching curricula set up by the European Space Agency, mostly for these Pis. I have a story of one young woman, a middle school student, has a program up there that is measuring defoliation in Africa. Can you imagine her first job interview? Yes, I've written some code. It's aboard the ISS, and you want to see some defoliation? A middle school student. You're talking about your student who won the prizes last night at your awards ceremony. That's our future. That's our future. Who has gone outside early in the morning or after sunset and actually seen the ISS streak across the sky? Oh, I never failed. I was at my local Best Buy store, and I just said, "That's the ISS." And there's there's 7 people trying to capture it as it crosses the sky. Commander Weissman aboard the ISS gave us some voice simplex time a couple years ago, and some folks think this is one of the coolest simplex contacts you can make in this hobby. NA1SS, Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra.
Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra. This is NA1SS 2 Alpha GX.
Commander Weissman, thank you very much for what you're doing for amateur radio this weekend, K6LCS. Now, that looks like me 20 pounds ago with a $15 tape measure beam, a Yaesu FT60, not a duplex radio, turned down to 2 watts, talking to a station that was 465 miles downrange when we started. These are the ultimate line of sight experiments. If you can see the other satellite, or see the other station without trees, without encumbrances of buildings and elevation changes, you're going to hit it. You're going to work it. Why did I turn my radio down to 2 watts? I know there's 7 or 8 dB gain in that stupid little antenna. And what is the maximum of our hobby? Use the least amount of power necessary to make it happen. So I knew it was going to happen. I knew if he'd hear me, I knew it was going to happen. So yeah, it'll do it. It'll do it. I was also honored to orchestrate one of those ARIS contacts. This is historic Flabob Airport, historic because it is Chapter 1 of the Experimental Aircraft Association. Here we are in Aircraft Hangar 16. Our city had just incorporated. We're California's newest city, so our new city council was there, our school board was there. There's our students in the front right who are going to ask questions. Tom Pettit, there. If you know these projects, these are a year's worth of prep for a 15-minute interview. Monday, my audio was fine with Houston. Tuesday, fine. Thursday, we had audio problems. We almost got aborted. If NASA knew on the right-hand side that I was in the back, turning up the pots for the kids, excuse me, for the students, turning it up for Tom Pettit, they would have said, no, we're going to be Mickey Mouse in this. We'll do it next year. We did it. We pulled it off. We got our students on the front page, color photo, above the fold in California's 6th largest daily newspaper. Where
NPR radio.
NPR was there, NBC was there. We had a great time. We were just praying that Paris Hilton didn't get drunk that night and bump us off the front page. But Bill, no, we got it. That's where our kids were. Excuse me, our students. Okay, so what did...
CB, tell them about how to get a QSL card.
Oh, we'll talk about that. Just hearing the ISS qualifies you for your QSL card. But let's get started here. What did Bill want me to talk about? Oh, working amateur satellites with your handheld radio. And again, who am I to do this? Only a ham since '94. But with some cool experience working for Motorola Commercial for a few years, and then of course with HRO for a few more years. So I've seen both sides of the hobby, both sides of radio communications, and Motorola experience has some wonderful projects for public service and hospitals here in Southern California. I have a website because 20 years ago I was looking for current information and ran into that roadblock. Well, it's not a roadblock. You find the information, you start programming radios, and realize it's dated. So work-sat.com has been up for 18 years, I think, with a frequency chart for just working the easy satellites. If you want to get into the HF birds, into the sideband birds, into the Morse code only birds, digital birds, there's links to go there. But just get your feet wet. We're going to demolish 2 common preconceptions, and all of you know the answer to these already. Clint, you need 100 watts, you need that expensive Yaesu rotator, and you need multiple Yankees to get involved with satellites. Is that all correct? Well, we ask Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci, is that all correct?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, he says. But Clint, isn't this an expensive proposition to get involved in this aspect of the hobby? Well, we all love Jack. Jack, is it expensive?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Most of you already have the necessary equipment. There's the iconic ICOM W32A, true full duplex. A friend of mine in Texas, we have a Texas person here this evening. A friend of mine in Texas, Alan, made more than 9,000 contacts with an HT and an improved whip. Now, we don't really recommend the improved whip except for 2-meter receiving the ISS or receiving slow scan TV from the ISS. You can do that with your stock duck. We know that I know it's -9 dB. You can do that with your stock duck, but you want some more gain and directionality to get yourself on the 440 side of life. But receiving, definitely doable with an improved antenna. Knowledge is power. I think Bill's mom used to date this guy. Think so? Sir Francis Bacon? I think they used to do breakfast together. 1597. Knowledge is power. All right, I'm on the West Coast. Can somebody tell me what time are we at? Unmute yourselves and tell me.
7:34.
That's the wrong answer.
6:34.
No. Anybody watching the screen?
8:30.
Trivia time.
Paul got it. It's trivia time. Okay, group. OSCAR is an acronym. What does OSCAR stand for? Sorry, Jeff. OSCAR. Somebody unmute themselves. Tell us what OSCAR stands for.
Orbital satellite carrying amateur radio.
Stands the man.
Orbiting
Yes.
satellite carrying on
It's
amateur
not
radio.
that. It is indeed orbital satellite. Get that image out of your head. It is orbital satellite carrying amateur radio, and there is Oscar 1. Oscar 1. If that looks like a bunch of sheet metal and rivets, it's because it is. There's Lance Gunnar with it in Central California. Look at that high-tech surface mount componentry. You don't need a magnifying glass for any of that. Okay, without mentioning your age, anybody hear this project? All it did was emit Morse code, HI, for a couple of orbits. No one's going to admit it. No one's going to admit it. $63. Remember that dollar amount. $63 back. Look at the Dymo label maker tape. I remember Dymo label makers. Remember when the wood grain tape came out, how cool that was? I hate this slide. I apologize, but there's way too many words. But just know that in 61 was our first U.S. amateur satellite. Oscar 2 failed. Oscar 3, our first amateur satellite with a transponder aboard it. We've had more than 125 Oscars. Russia's always been involved, and there's always been amateur radio gear aboard the ISS. They actually used our gear when they were doing some work on their primary system. It wasn't an emergency, but they used our gear for regular comms while they worked on. And again, almost all astronauts are licensed amateur radio operators. The low Earth orbiting satellites we can work handheld, about a 2-hour orbit. They'll be going north to south or south to north, so that their solar panels will be hit by the sun at least twice a day to energize the batteries. We don't have a geosynchronous satellite over South, Central, and North America. There's one over Africa. Amateur payload was not its primary mission, but there was amateur gear on board. It's working. If you'd asked AMSAT 20 years ago, will we ever have a geosynchronous satellite over Central, South, and North America? No. It's very expensive real estate. It's got to be a very expensive satellite. It must be maneuverable so we don't interrupt your Super Bowl coverage in February. And we just didn't have any piggyback opportunities. But we've got SpaceX has a board member who's a ham radio operator. Could that be a piggyback opportunity at some point in time? This is not a proclamation. This is not an announcement, but now, today, more than ever, this might be a possibility. Can you imagine having a geosynchronous satellite that for American Red Cross work or avalanche recovery or floods or tornadoes for Red Cross and you folks to work? It'd be phenomenal resource. And it's just takes some money. Just takes some money. A few terms you're going to run into while working these satellites. This is all elementary stuff. I apologize. Orbit is the path of the satellite around the Earth. Doppler. There is a Doppler accommodation we must make on the 440 side of life on these 2-meter 440 satellites. And I asked Bill, did you all bring your slide rules with you this evening? No? Okay. Let's say the satellite is transmitting on 435-300, 435-300. Due to Doppler, tune or program 305 and 310. And my mnemonic device is acquire above when it's a 440 coming down at you. So you'll be hearing it at 310, then work at 305, work at 300 as time of closest approach. It'll be right on the center frequency. And as you lose it, it'll be slightly lower than the center frequency. At what moment in time do you change frequencies? No computer will tell you. Your ear will tell you. That's one of the cool reasons for working true full duplex. You'll have a headset on or earpiece in, and you'll be able to hear yourself and how well you're getting into the satellite. Here is I don't see any slide rules. Nobody brought their slide rules. Here is the frequency, the equation, but don't worry. Okay, I did it for you, Jeff. I did it for you. Here's a decent pass of an FM LEO. Look on 2 meters, 145.9, only plus or minus 3 kilohertz of deviation. No big deal. But due to Doppler, look at 70 centimeters, look at 440. 20 kilohertz of deviation on that same pass due to Doppler.
I told you Rick accepted your challenge, dear.
Oh, Rick's got a slide rule?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. We'll have another equation here in a couple minutes.
Okay.
So whether you're receiving or transmitting on 70 centimeters, Doppler is an important. Yes, these satellites have a little bit of automatic frequency correction in them, but you helping it will make things much better, much more successful. If LEO is the acronym for low Earth orbiting, then HEO must be an acronym for high Earth orbit, and GEO is geosynchronous. We already talked about that. Uplink is a signal from you to the satellite. Downlink is coming from the satellite. Footprint will be the oval or circular area on Earth where you should be line of sight to the satellite. The programs and sites I'll talk about in a couple minutes will be very conservative with that footprint usually. If your line of sight and it's more than 7 or 8 or 9 degrees above the horizon with no obstructions, you're going to be hearing it. Hey, there's the footprint. And a lot of you are asking why, and thank you for not hanging up already. You have your 6-meter nets, you have your propagation work, you have local Colorado repeaters. Why mess with a 10-minute pass? This should be a no one's 911 plan. These are not manned by people. This is not going to coincide with your disaster. It's just another aspect. I bet you there's no one in this room that only wears one hat in this hobby. From our conversation before the meeting, you're doing several different things. Going to a local or regional park, unfurling a tape measure beam and starting to talk to terrestrial stations or satellites is going to draw families over. Of course, you'll have your membership application in your pocket as you talk to folks, find out what's happening with STEM and STEAM education in schools. It's just another, and a tape measure beam draws attention. It's just another aspect of this hobby that any of us can do. It's technician stuff. It's technician stuff. Let's flip forward to 2004. AMSAT Oscar 5-1 cost a little bit more than it did in 61 to get up and running. This was the most phenomenal learning and teaching and amateur satellite marketing tool we have ever had. It was just so wonderfully easy to work, to hear. There's its CubeSat. There we are in the front center of this payload. There are 3 CubeSats here, but we're the only amateur gear on this payload. Again, sun synchronous. We had a 1.2 gig uplink for those who had that Alinco or ICOM handheld. We put in that mode on a couple of weekends. It was just a phenomenal, lasted a few years longer than it was expected. And we've just been trying to duplicate the wonderfulness, is that a word? Yeah, the wonderfulness of that educational satellite. Again, these are sun synchronous. When your wife goes on her first trip to Tibet for 6 weeks and you're alone in the house, you go to other satellite operators' sites, grab their telemetry downloading programs, download data over Colorado and send it back to them in Europe. This is solar panel condition, battery conditions. This is just really cool stuff. But again, must be done when your significant other is several miles away. The Saudis have a satellite up for us. Okay, a show of hands, please. A show of hands. How many have had an HT battery last for 20 years? Stan? No? This was launched in 2002, 22 years ago, 21 years ago. So it's not lithium. It's a NiCad chemistry. Why is this satellite still working? We're not quite sure. Oh, it's a little off frequency. And I apologize, you will need a full 4 or 5 watts to get into it reliably. But this satellite is still working for us 24/7. Not quite sure why. One of those defying the laws of physics. Just like in Dealey Plaza in 1963. AO-27 died about 10 years ago, then came back to life. We're not quite sure why. And it was programmed to just work the first 3 or 4 minutes and the last 3 or 4 minutes of a North American pass. Not working right now, but I've got it programmed just in case something happens. It's just with these HTs we have now, just program these 5 frequencies. We lost 92, both 91 and 92, AMSAT Oscar 91 and 92. I'm not going to use the F word. I'm not going to use failure. They just never materialized to what we wanted them to be. And now it's at a point where with 91, please only attempt it if you're getting sunburned. Only attempt it if it's getting hit by sunlight. But 92 passed away last month. So 91 is up there. We'll talk about it. So minimum requirements for working this, a 2-meter 440 handheld. The Yaesu handhelds allow you to program split frequencies. You can program 2-meter receive, 440 transmit in the same memory location. Not duplex by any means. You key the mic, you don't hear anything. But it's not absolutely mandatory that you work full duplex. And AMSAT members, don't yell at me yet, AMSAT members. Off-peak hours during the week, late at night, if you just treat it like your local repeater, you don't intentionally step on someone. You wait for a break in the action, then key your mic. Now, if it's field day, if it's a scouting event, if it's a Saturday afternoon, it's going to be, some people say it's chaos. I just think it's wonderful. You have as much opportunity getting in with your handheld as that guy in Texas with 100 watts sitting with his brown liquor cowboy hat and the echo in his voice. It's one person getting in. It's all timing. So during the week, being an insomniac, I talked to a gentleman in France who had a beautiful pass the ISS all to himself last month. I mean, so off-peak hours, you can do it without being full duplex. But let me say for the 9th time, it's preferred to do full duplex, but not absolutely mandatory. Anybody have an FT60? These are just wonderful eggs. It doesn't do your 6 meter work, but an entry-level HT for 2 meter 440, it is still the finest complete feature set. 1,000 memories, easy to manually program, large legible display, receives 108 to a gig, receives AM aircraft properly, and its battery situation. This is what really sets it aside from anything else that's out there. You get the optional AA case for it, populate it with alkalins or nickel metal hydride, and you have full transmit power available if you really need it. I'm a fan of not using full transmit power, but that's what sets it aside from a lot of rigs. It's 18 years old. It was announced in Dayton in 2004. Still $150. Oh, strongest belt clip of any amateur HT on the market also. FT60, it doesn't do your 6 meter work, but if you have someone who wants a solid performer for 2 meter 440, FT60. And the Yaesu rigs, when you program that split frequency mode, the plus and the minus will show up in the display. This is on page 28 of the FT60 manual. It's on page, I think, 22, 23 of the FT70 advanced manual. And of course, we need to improve our stock antennas. Stock antennas, you know, are all -6, -9 dB at best. One of the most popular add-ons is the Diamond SRH 320. Nice, it's a great antenna, great performer, but it's always 14 inches long and it's $50. A better performer at half the price. Hams love bargains, don't they? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The Smiley 270. It's a collapsible metal antenna, which I usually don't recommend for delicate HT antenna connectors, but we'll talk about that in a second. But the Smiley 270 will outperform the Diamond SRH3. I don't mean to insult any Diamond owners. I own them both. This is the type of mistake you can make with the Diamond. Oh, excuse me, with the Smiley. It has a coil in the base which serves as a shock absorber. You can actually drop it. If you're thinking of working with different antennas on your HT, think of converting that delicate SMA to a BNC. Quality SMA connectors are only rated at 300 or so disconnects. I'd rather see you wear out a $15 BNC connector than wear out either throw away a Baofeng or get a $60 repair job on a Yaesu. Except that connector on the left, that all metal CN3 from Yaesu, I think it should be outlawed. Really, Clint? Yes, here is why. Imagine putting heavy coax or a heavier antenna on these two rigs. The one on the left, the arrow is showing you it's metal-to-metal contact with your HT. Any stress is yanking against your circuit board. It's going to fail during your event. It's going to fail during your net. It's going to fail at some point in time. But the one on the right has some cushion to it, a shock absorber. I hate to harp on this, but when I was at HRO, I had a lot of hams dropping radios and damaging antenna connectors. And you folks, you engineers have seen this worse in the field. PL and N down to SMA. That's just scary. Now it's almost dinner time for me. If anyone there has a weak heart or anyone there has just eaten dinner.
The following is not suited for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
You have been advised. If you have a weak heart, please turn away. Oh, Stan, I think there's 7. There's a cable TV F connect. Someone went to Radio Shack and got one of everything. Don't do this to the hobby. Don't do this on field day. Don't let a reporter leave your event and say, well, this is why they call it amateur radio. Don't do this. Your local HRO or your hamfests have jumper cables for you, something to relieve stress off the delicate HT's antenna jack. Okay, enough of that. Here's the two little diamond buffered or shock absorbing ones. Ask a fellow ham or ask HRO which mates properly to the top of your radio. There's a lot of difference, a lot of physical difference between how antennas mate to the top of radios. When your wife goes on her second trip to Tibet for 6 weeks, you whip out your Motorola test gear and you start testing HT antennas. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. Stan, as we all learned in adolescence, longer is better. Longer is better. For 2 meter 440 work on a handheld, you want 17 or 18 inches, and it's either UHF or VHF. If you get a new ham joining your club and says, I just got one of those new VNA testers, I'll test HT antennas for you, just steer that energy towards something more exciting, some 6 meter antenna. Yeah, testing HT antennas is a waste of time. Double your, oh, here's an old ad campaign. Here's an old ad campaign. Bill, no extra charge for this. Who would like to double the life of their HT's battery? Anybody like to double the life of their HT's battery? I think you all know where I'm going with this. Improve your stock antenna to that smiley or that diamond, and turn your transmit power down to 2 watts. Engineers, if you're not making it 2 watts line of sight FM voice, you're not going to make it to 4 or 5 watts, are you? No. So there. At half power, I just doubled your battery life. You want to increase your battery life even more? Yes, we do, Clint. Wear an earpiece. Wear a headset. What's the first thing you'll do with your volume control if you stick an earpiece in your ear? Stan knows you'll turn it down. What eats up batteries? Keying the mic and loud audio. So you don't immediately need a second battery for that FT70. Improve the antenna, turn your power down. So group, no extra charge for that hint tonight. That's a freebie. That's a freebie. You got Karen free and you got this tip free. Get perpendicular. This is a banner I had on my truck before I realized I needed to respect my marriage more. Yeah. But when you go out in the front yard with your HT and you key your mic, your transmitted signal is leaving the top third of the antenna, essentially, at about 90 degrees, expecting to hit someone down the street or hit a hilltop repeater. Most of our amateur satellites are not land-based. 3, 2, 1. Most of our amateur satellites are not land-based. So you need to alter that perpendicular relationship of your antenna to the orbit of the satellite. You're going to be opening up your squelch all the way. It's going to be noisy at first, but you're going to tilt it and you're going to start hearing a slight dip in the background noise. And that's when you start capturing it. And about 2 minutes later, you'll start hearing voices. You're close enough to the West Coast, there's almost always going to be someone for you on the FM satellites. So yeah, get perpendicular. And if someone wants to send me $25 to AMSAT, I'll send you that bumper sticker. This is me at the Santa Barbara Ham Fest a few years ago. The young man on the left in the red shirt just acquired his ham license the day before. His very first communications were working with me through a satellite that day. It gets better, Stan. It gets better, Paul. His father and his grandfather were there, each 3 generations, each working satellites for the very first time. This is, when you get to be 95 years of age, this type of photo is I just get all weepy over this. This is a cool photo that I'll cherish. I'll cherish. The handheld Yagis, the commercial ones, the log periodic from Elk. I apologize. That wonderful Elk L5 log periodic, or the Arrow crossband Yagi. They're each about 3 pounds in weight, and holding it for these 10 or 12 minute passes will put some stress on your arm. What I've done with my setup on my Arrow is actually made the whole thing heavier, but I've counterbalanced it. Here's a little tray made out of right angle aluminum to hold the HT. That's a Stanley hacksaw handle. Yes, it is. And so now the whole thing's counterweighted. It's heavier, but it's now balanced. Because 15 years ago, you can see on my wrist, I developed this defect. It took, goodness gracious, I went to your local orthopedic surgeons and they looked at it. It took about 3 weeks to discover that it was Arrow wrist syndrome. Arrow wrist syndrome. Don't be a victim of Arrow wrist syndrome. Thank you, Paul. So here's my setup. The bottle of Tang is not full. It's just my homage to our space race. There's the handle, that little white thing behind the handle. That's just one of those little USB batteries that was powering my smartphone. There's my cue cards out there. We're working the slow scan TV downlink at HRO. The guy on the roof. I have no idea. That might be my parole officer taking photos of where I was. And then Joe Walsh has been a fan of and a supporter of amateur radio for a long, long time. But again, it's all counterbalanced and very easy to work with. Put a charity bracelet around it. Your engineers, I already got something in a text box. Your engineers are wondering about circular polarization. There's so much gain in that arrow antenna, in the elk log periodic, even in the tape measure beam. And there's a 2-meter 440 dual band tape measure beam plans on my website. There's so much gain that I really haven't noticed circular polarization being a problem, except when I'm losing SO50. Now I know every engineer here can prove to me that a simple 90-degree twist of that Yagi is going to produce between a 3 and 20-degree difference in signal loss or gain. But I think it's just that there's so much gain in those antennas that I'm just not noticing as much. So don't worry about every demo I give, every pass, I will subtly turn it 90 degrees and see if I can hear any different. And it's when it's above you, it's just quiet background noise as your local repeaters. It's just wonderful. So circular polarization is real. I just have not experienced it with these high gain antennas, except for losing SO50. You need to know where these are. They aren't geosynchronous. So we need to know where these are for you. Here's your AMSAT engineering team working 24/7. That's your second slide rule reference. This is 2024, isn't it? This is so Cold War-ish. I apologize. But there we are. And to derive pass data for every pass you want to work, all you do is with your slide rule, plug in the epoch time, element set, inclination, RI of node, eccentricity, arc of the perigee, mean anomaly, mean motion, decay rate, epoch revolution. Don't forget to check sum. Stan, don't forget to check sum, and then graph this out on your equatorial graph paper for every pass of every satellite you want to work. Okay, we got that? You got it? Middle school students are doing this. Oh, God. Don't worry. Rick did it. Good for Rick. You don't need to worry about this. There are programs and sites out there. We're all friends here now. Anybody still using a Palm device? Anybody still have a Trio 750 or Trio 650? No? If you did, you'd get your spare battery at batteriesamerica.com. Batteriesamerica.com on the East Coast. They aren't a sponsor. I've just been a consumer of theirs for 20 years. Older HT batteries, AA cases for your older HTs. Batteriesamerica.com. Batteriesamerica.com. Here is AMSAT Droid for your Android folks. But wait a minute. What's wrong with that pass? Anybody see what's wrong with that pass? AO51. Did the guy in the Van Gogh shirt say sun synchronous? So will this east to west pass ever happen? No. This is while we were beta testing this software. It is now known as AMSAT Droid Free. AMSAT Droid Free in the Google Play Store. It now gives you accurate pass data. AMSAT Droid Free. Doesn't cost much either. It is free. There are no Blackberries left. For you Linux folks, for you Pi folks, gpredict. gpredict is gorgeous. Look at this. It tracks multiple satellites. It'll control rotators for you later on. gpredict. You can port it to Mac. You can port it to Windows via third-party software. It's absolutely free. I take this to shows with me. There it is on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which is way overkill for it. It'll run on a 0 and a little monitor. But gpredict. It's usually on a monitor on the right almost all the time. It's just a gorgeous program and free, absolutely free. I said free. For my phone though, for my Apple iPhone, GoSat Watch is my go-to. Not cheap. It's a $10 app. When I recommend apps, it's because I know them and I can get answers from authors on what's happening, how can I fix things, how things work. About 5 years ago, NASA changed the manner by which we acquired ISS pass data. This gentleman had this program rewritten and uploaded to the Apple App Store within 3 weeks. That, to me, is a responsive ham. He's up in Canada. GoSat Watch, all one word, $10, a very worthwhile investment for satellite work. For Windows folks, there's SatPC32, a commercial program, and if you are a member of AMSAT, you get a discount on it. Beautiful program. Will also control rotators. Nova for Windows hasn't been updated in 15 or 20 years. And not for Windows 11, kinda for 10, but if you're running an old Windows 98 machine, it might just run for you. Nova for Windows used to be commercial. There's an unlock code on my website where you can get it unlocked. Okay, a time for my medication, I think. And I apologize. Any Mac folks in the room? Okay, I apologize. I show this low-res Jiffy thing for Nova. Clint must be running Macs. Mac Doppler Pro, absolutely gorgeous program. Also will control rotators, and a commercial program. You can get a discount on it if you are a member of AMSAT. All right, somewhere on the planet, it's 7 o'clock. Who has this evening's final Jeopardy response?
Johannes Kepler.
Somebody yelled out something.
Yeah, Kepler.
Oh, I apologize. It must be in the form of a question.
Who was Kepler?
You are absolutely right. This is the first time in 3 times in 60 years I've done the final Jeopardy answer. But yes, Johnny Kepler, Johannes Kepler. And just think of that white box in the middle there as the mathematical statement of the orbit of a satellite. And at midnight tonight, 1 o'clock your time, I'm running a private little Zoom meeting. We can decode that. Stop! Somebody laughed at me. We'll decode that. Yeah, Johannes Kepler. Yeah. My wife was 9 miles away in Corona, and I think she heard me scream, I know Final Jeopardy, I know Final Jeopardy. I had to play that 30-second tune in its entirety without interruption. That's part of my licensing agreement with Sony Entertainment Network. Thank you, Sony. All right, here's another one. No song, though, no song. Around since 1998, it's now about the length of a football field and travels at 5 miles per second. We all know what that is. The ISS. Cool. Okay, free online stuff. And sources for past info as you're starting out with these. If you're just starting out with these, use 2 sources to begin with. Make sure they both match each other. The errors you can make, the errors I have made, wrong time of day or wrong grid square. Some of these programs might revert to the author's home grid square before you register it. So use 2 sources. Make sure they both coincide with each other. Heavensabove.com, heavensabove.com, n2yo.com, n2yo.com, and good old AMSAT.org. The first 2 will give you beautiful graphic representations of your passes, and AMSAT gives you that. Got it? Okay. What you're going to look for in this, on the AMSAT data, look at in the middle there is a maximum elevation column, and you're looking for, oh my God, there's an 85 right there. There's an 85 right there. Let's look at that one more closely. Look at that, 85-degree elevation. Let's look at that one more closely. Okay, Clint, let's. Remember, the AMSAT data is in Greenwich Mean Time. Greenwich Mean Time. So subtract out 7 hours right now for Greenwich Mean Time. So here's a pass, 85 degrees elevation. This is going right over Bill's house. This is going right over Bill's house. You're going to acquire it at 229 on the compass. ISS is not it's not the sun solar. It's a funky little orbit. We'll show you in a second. But you acquire it at 229. Then over there it says LOS, loss of signal, at 53. This is a southwest to northeast pass going right over your city. 7:58 UTC time. So 7:58 on the 29th minus 7 hours. It's late. It's 12:58 at night. Or early, or an hour after midnight. But to hear it, it's worthwhile stepping out. What's the weather now in Colorado at midnight? How cold is it?
About 40.
40? Oh my God. I'm in California. When it gets down to 60, we start dying. But anyway, here's a wonderful pass. So that whole chart of stuff you just decoded. Look for the elevation, and let's say your name is Michael, and let's say your call sign is KT5MR, and you're in EL29 land. Michael, here's a pass for you on the 29th at 8:30 in the morning. Check this out, from the northwest to southeast and slightly towards the north. This is one for you, Michael, to hear in Texas. And is that your call? Is that your grid square, Michael? EL29?
That is, yeah. And Rick,
Awesome.
Rick is also
Awesome.
in EL29.
See how much I respect this group? We called around and found some other people. Anyway, Just hearing the ISS qualifies you for this gorgeous QSL card. Just hearing it, you'll be, for just hearing it, a shortwave listener, SWL. Then when you work at Packet, or when you work at Voice, or when you hear slow scan TV later, you can ask for another one, so get another one of these. The address for obtaining this is on my website. They don't charge you anything, but slip a buck in the envelope. The guy's really busy. But this is a gorgeous QSL card that you can get just for hearing the ISS. Here is, this is mesmerizing to me. This is why it's not sun synchronous. This is your International Space Station. And that's why it has, okay, we can do this all night long, but it's not sun synchronous. Again, location and time. As you work with these programs, make sure your location, grid square, and time of day is correct, and find out if they're respecting daylight savings time, or if you're respecting daylight savings time. On my website, there's this widget that N2YO wrote for me showing where 91, 50, and the ISS are right now, so you can match things up. General procedures, we're almost through a part 1 of our presentation. You need to listen. You're going to open up your squelch all the way. We're talking about a quarter watt from 500 miles. So you're going to open up your squelch. Here's something weird, and SO50 is the exception. But if you don't hear it, please don't key your mic. That sounds weird, but your fellow AMSATers on the West Coast, they will know. They might be sending some housekeeping chores to 91. They might be trying to resurrect 27. So your fellow AMSATers on the West Coast will know, and you'll hear them start to talk. Now, SO50 is the exception. We'll talk about it in a second. On the weekends, this might just be a call sign and have a nice day, and be that quick. There are hams going after grid squares, after contests and things. I took a survey last week. No, it's 2 weeks ago now. 94.7% of amateur radio satellite operators are just fine people. We've all made mistakes. We've all keyed the mic, forgetting to turn our volume up. We've all made errors. We've all accidentally stepped on someone else. You're not going to get anybody knocking on your door. You'll get an email, and possibly on how to improve things. And I heard you, but you didn't hear me. But yeah, we're all just fine out there. There's very, very little intentional interference and nonsense happening. How far can you go with these? This is by no means a record, but 2,000 miles from LA to Georgia. This was done with FT60s, and I apologize. We each were using a full 4 watts, and we each were using the Arrow antenna. This, again, by no means a record, nor can I reproduce this every night, but it just is what is possible. The footprint on the upper right-hand says I wasn't going to go more than 500 miles, but it went a lot further than that. All right, Bill's house. Last trivia question of the evening. Who knows the grid square at Bill's house? WT0DX. Anybody? I couldn't find a meeting in your club. It is indeed, yes. Anybody know the suffix? You don't need to know the suffix for satellite work. I think it's DM79. I think it's Papa November. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, it is.
Okay, you don't need to know the suffix. I know your club is training you on using the internationally known phonetics. That's what astronauts are expecting. That's what fellow hams should be expecting. So it's Delta Mike 79, not Dumb Mary or something. So yeah, Delta Mike and international phonetics. We already talked about that. Here's what I take with me to, I've got the Kenwood THT72A. I just don't take it with me to demos. Now those things are on eBay for $1,000. For that you can buy 2 FT60s, an Arrow antenna, and have a really nice dinner someplace. But I take a non-duplex radio, either the Arrow, I always take my tape measure beam, draws attention, draws conversations, and some way to protect my SMA connector. Here is the programming, you don't need to write this down. Here's the programming chart for SO50. A lot of satellites require a tone on uplink, leave receive open tone. And this one, it requires a 67.0. If you look at channel 206 in the middle there, the transmit frequency remains the same. Are we accommodating for Doppler on 2 meters? No, we're not. But look at the receive frequency. It's a little off. It's more like 436,797. It's rocket science, but it ain't rocket science. Anyway, that's close enough. And as you notice, there's 795 in the middle, then 800 and 805 to acquire it. Is there a typo in the, do you have a blue arrow on your screen? Anybody know what that 74.4 is there for?
No.
Oh, folks, you are in for a treat. Let's say you've
Activation.
worked SO50 a few times, and so you know how it works, you know when it's there, you know how it operates, but it is 2 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep, you go to your shack, and oh my gosh, SO50 is going over Colorado right now. You put
You
the
gotta
parka
turn it
on,
on.
put your parka on, you walk outside, you key the mic on 67, no one answers. Key up on 74.4 and turn the satellite on for 10 minutes. You become the control operator of that satellite. You think I wasn't scared crudless the first time I did that? I thought, oh God, it's going to crash in a koi pond. The handcuffs from AMSAT are going to be tighter than heck. You know how to turn it on. Someone else on the West Coast, on the Western US, might not have known. Off peak hours, it might have timed out. You become the control operator of a satellite. How cool is that, Paul? Indeed, indeed. Here is AO91, and we're transmitting on 440. So receiving, we're not accommodating for Doppler, but we're accommodating for Doppler on the transmit frequency. So let's put this all together. We're almost through a part one. You know when it's going to be there. You know where it's going to be in the sky. You'll get to a point where you won't take your PDA out with you, or your Palm, or your iPad, or your printout. You'll just know whether north to south or south to north, and whether it's going to be towards your east or towards your west. This is not a minute, stressful movement of your antenna. There's a lot of, what's the technical word? Slop. Yeah, slop in this. You know what your grid square is. You got your radio program because you went to my website, and you will phonetically use your own call sign, please. Wait for a break in the action. Key your mic, Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra, Delta Mike 79. And then some AMSAT folks don't like me doing this, but I will say handheld or demo. It's only half a second of airtime. When you say handheld, it's going to let fellow satellite workers know, here's someone newer with lower power, let's let them in. If you say demo, that tells fellow hams, it should tell fellow ham, you're trying to show off this in front of a group. So saying demo or handheld after that, go ahead and do it. I wouldn't say demoing at Palm Springs in front of 755 people, please come back. But yeah, demo or handheld is fine. No one's going to chew you out for that. And it is your and my responsibility to report to this website what you hear or what you don't hear that you thought you should have. This is the live Oscar satellite status page. Just know that blue is good. Blue is good. So when you hear something, run back in the house. The top arrow is AO27, not working for us right now. There's AO91, the second arrow. The blue across there, daylight hours, is working. ISS data packet is all red. It's not configured right now. But ISS crossband repeater, the FM repeater, look at that, blue, 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 all the way across. The white arrow is PO101, also a crossband FM repeater, but it's not on 24/7. So you have to go to their Twitter feed and see when it's going to be on. It just adds another piece of the equation for you to get work, but it operates just the same as the others. And there's, look at the bottom, SO50, all blue. Now, if you worked SO50 a few times and then you don't hear it one night, do not be afraid to say you did not hear it. Something might have happened. Entering your data on the submit report page, there's a drop-down list for satellites. Whether the uplink and downlink were active, it reverts to the last 15-minute time period, and wait a minute, and that's a familiar call sign. QRZ, who is that? Yes, it is Paul. It is Paul. Paul was out working 50 a few days ago. And that donate button on the bottom there goes right to AMSAT, 100% to AMSAT. Here is PO101's status. It's telling you it's just on for a few hours on these days. But uplink 440 and downlink on 2 meter. Slow scan TV from the ISS. Russia will do 3 or 4 of these projects a year. Some will spill over to North America, and then we will do some also. Slow scan TV, again, can be heard with just your stock duck. These images, that image was recorded with my FT60 and my iPhone with a $3 app. No Windows drivers, no interconnecting cables, no audio drivers, just put the phone next to the the HT. Now, do you see right in the middle, those white dots right across the guy's shirt? If you do this acoustically like that, leave the dog in the house. That was our dear Freya barking, bark, 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 3 times in that. So I'll always cherish this one just for that. But that's how clean you can do it without. Now, some hams record it and then decode it later, but this can be as exciting and as instant as simply holding your HT up to your smartphone. And again, receiving that slow scan TV qualifies you for. Here's last year's project. This was a Russia only project. And don't get upset with that. Nothing political. Nothing. They're very proud of what they've done in space, and we all are cooperating aboard the ISS. So don't take this personally when you hear about slow scan TV, but it's Russian centric. Don't worry about it. It's nothing to be upset about. Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I thought I turned this off. Wait a second. I'm on the air. Can you leave me alone for a second? From Eris. Oh, talk more about the ISS. Okay. All right. I will right now. Cool. All right. The International Space Station. There is on the Columbus module, the US module, our 2 meter 440 antenna. Kind of looks like tape measure elements, doesn't it? That's our 2 meter 440 antenna on the Columbus module. There are the 3 ARIS antennas on the Russian module. There is a page that shows you what the status is of the ISS gear. And it was last updated 3 weeks ago. The Columbus module crossband repeater is configured. The service module packet is not working right now. And that's where your data is important because they're saying it was configured and you and I both know it's off because it wasn't working when we did it. So reporting your results to that AMSAT page not only helps fellow hams, it helps ARIS, it helps NASA, it helps the control operators of these satellites know what's going on with their satellites, with their projects. The ISS frequencies, you don't need to write any of these down. The crossband repeater, that uplink is a little funky. It's 145.99 with a 67 tone. And just to hear this, that pass over Bill's house or the pass over Texas, just turn your receiver to 437-800 and just hear it as it goes over. Then you're going to want to transmit and key the mic the next couple of passes. And again, just hearing it qualifies you for that QSL card. This is all the stuff's on worksat.com for you. Slow scan TV will be on 145-800 and packet is on 145-825. All right, that's it. That's the end of part 1. Anybody have any questions I could try to answer? Yeah, thank you, Bill.
I have a comment.
Oh, we have a comment from Southern California. Go ahead, please.
Yes, we do. This is as the wife of the tonight's speaker. From lessons learned, don't ever use your significant other's Fiskars or tape measure. In other words, folks, don't go in the kitchen drawer to cut up that tape measure. That belongs to your significant other. Don't use that tape measure and don't use her Fiskars to cut it up either.
Don't touch those expensive Fiskars in that wonderful padded case.
That's right.
Is there a Harbor Freight in town? Yep. Sure. Okay. Thank you, Bill. There's your tape measure beam. Please do something with the ends. Please do something, no matter how you trim it. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Love you.
Love you.
Love your Fiskars.
Thank you.
Do something with the end. Put it in Plastidip used to be in existence. I don't think they sell it in California anymore because it was just way too exciting to sniff. I found some foam golf balls that I actually put on the end of my elements because my attorney said either do that or give everybody goggles. So do something. It's very, very sharp. Very, very sharp no matter how you round off those ends for your crossband beam. If you go to my website, work-sat.com, and scroll, boy, that's really busy. Geez. Scroll down to the bottom. In the middle there is Satellite Show Citations. I love the alliteration. Here is, in chronological order, everything we talked about this evening. It's all on the website. Links to ARIS, ARL on my antennas page. There's an antenna Scouts made out of barbed wire pieces that they successfully worked the ISS with. How much less expensive can you get than finding some Colorado barbed wire? Anyway, our tape measure beam, there's a 2 meter 440 tape measure beam. Excuse me, engineers, but my 2-meter tape measure beam plans does work SO50. I can't say that out loud though, because it insults all the engineers. Maybe it's because it's a third harmonic. I'm not sure, but it'll work for SO50. But if you want a crossband, now you're probably wondering, hey, should I spend $175 on an arrow or build a $15 tape measure beam? What's the gain? Pun intended. Ha 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 ha. You have to do that yourself. The log periodic by Elk or the arrow crossband Yagi, much more elegant looking. They all store well or travel well. But yeah, when you have 7 or 8 dB gain in some tape measure pieces, now the arrow comes in different models. One arrow comes with a diplexer in the handle, so it'll have 2-meter 440 elements coming down into one radio for you. That's cool. You can save $30 and not get the diplexer, in which case you'll be using 2 radios. The Elk log periodic, just due to its nature and its wider bandwidth, just is not, I don't want to degrade it by any means, but it just isn't as sensitive at the beginning and end of passes as the more narrow banded arrow. But they're each, the Elk log periodic, the model L5, gorgeous black epoxy to their elements, or the arrow made out of actual arrow shafts from the arrow. What's it? Archery, from archery. Just wonderful things. Wonderful things. A couple people asked what the models were of the old HTs. There's the old HTs, but don't go to eBay and buy one of these for $250 because the first thing you'll need is a new battery. But remember the Yaesu FT530? It had the slide-in. Oh, there's an arrow right there.
All right.
It's a 440 arrow, Bill. 440.
Yeah, I don't have the 2-meter elements on it right now.
Very cool. Very cool. We're working on a little add-on, a 1.2 add-on to that, which we can't talk about yet. The FT530 though, it had the slide-in case for the memory battery. The Kenwood D7, the 79, early serial numbers of the ICOM W32, or use separate transmit and receive units. Get a buddy and go 20 feet away and let the crowd listen over there as you work full duplex. All right. Are there any other satellites up there to work? That's a great question. There's a ton of them. There's communication satellites that we can work. There's transponder satellites. There's digital satellites. All that information is for you at amsat.org. amsat.org. All right, somebody unmute themselves and ask me. I couldn't have been that all-inclusive, and we're almost halfway through. Any questions so far? Bill is really appreciative of these bad jokes. I really like that. That's really cool.
So how many contacts have you made?
3.
Oh, that's 2 more than I make each year.
No, I don't know. I don't keep a log. I will send people QSL cards. I don't do it electronically anymore. I don't know. I'm almost always successful at shows. Let's see, at a local Orange County club 2 years ago, the exciting thing happened where I'm right in the middle of a sentence and I knew the SO50 was going to be overhead. And I said, okay, it's one thing to talk about it. My wife will stay here and watch your stuff. We're all going out in the parking lot and worked it, right then, pretending it was just an accident. But the reliability of these SO50 and the ISS, there's very little failure. Again, the things that I have failed at, once I forgot about daylight savings time, I was sitting in front of San Diego ham radio outlet, ready to do it. Thank goodness it was an hour later. And I think you can know me by now. I could stretch myself a little bit with talking. So remember daylight savings time and just know your grid square and time of day. So that's how I failed in the past. But you're gonna hear the ISS at minimum, and then work at a crossband repeater, and then hear the Slowscan TV projects and decode those usually 7 to 10 images they'll send down. The images are in PD 120 format, so it'll be a 2-minute transmission, and then they let the machine settle down and not get the module warm, and let it go for about maybe a minute and a half in between transmissions.
Sweetheart, you can tell them about failing to get the ISS for the conference where you spoke.
So I'm not going to mention Pacificon because it has a great respect and it's a wonderful ARRL sanctioned event here on the West Coast. But the gentleman called me a few years ago and said, Clint, you're going to be up here and Gordon West is going to be up here. Gordon West is speaking at 7:15. Could you please have the ISS come over at 7:30? And Bill, honest to God, I almost had to put the person on hold. I'm thinking, well, first of all, wow, someone thinks I have any power at all, knowing full well I have absolutely no power whatsoever. But having that kind of, so I put, I held the phone away for a few seconds. No, but we'll do it at about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. We get a pass for some scouts that stayed up. But yeah, that was a funny event. Then they called me. They had me do it 2 years in a row at Pacificon. That was fun. That was fun.
Question about slow scan stuff.
Yes.
These last experiments out of the Russian module have not been good. They've turned things off and on passes over the U.S. When are we going to get some good stuff like we used to get?
Okay, maybe I wasn't as clear. When they do those Russian-centric projects, don't be irritated with the Russians. It's not a political thing. But we will have ARIS setting up some slow scan TV projects worldwide for North America. When they're North American, we don't turn them off. But yeah, and why do they? But you know what? And I bet you did leave your radio on and monitor just in case someone forgets to flip the switch. But yeah, I don't feel slighted by Russia celebrating their space race, and we include them, and once in a while they'll include us. But it's not, please, it's not a political thing. Don't get upset with the Russian space program.
Okay, because the last one's the timing on a lot of them. You were hearing things when you weren't supposed to be, and when you should be hearing things, there was nothing there. So
yeah,
just an observation.
See, Jim White is with AMSAT, aren't you, Jim?
Not very much anymore, but I built a whole bunch of the stuff you've been talking about. Yeah.
Okay, who was the gentleman who said he was it Bill? Who's been with AMSAT for quite a while?
I've been an AMSAT member for 30 years.
Okay. So Jim, so what I said about Russian centric and not to take it personally as a country, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There is great cooperation on the ISS.
And that was one of the questions our students asked. And it was, no matter your country of origin, how do you get along up there? Well, they aren't talking about the presidential elections. They aren't talking about Ukraine. They're working on science projects that are benefiting us, health projects, heart projects, growing of plants, they aren't sitting up there reading their Kindles for 4 or 5 hours a day. They're very, very busy. If you go to any of the space agencies involved, look at the astronauts' schedule for a day. They are very, very busy. While you work the ISS, thinking FM voice, they work basically on Greenwich Mean Time. So from like 6 in the morning to 6 at night, somewhere in there. But when there's free time, pre-planned for some 2-meter simplex work, you'll hear all about it. The AMSAT sites or ARIS sites, and you'll hear me screaming in delight from Southern California. Thank you, Stan. So yeah, don't take it personally, Stan, but you're right. And even over Russia, they had problems with some of those images. I was just able to grab that one image from, I forgot who the gentleman was. But anyway, that one image was just one of the few, and it wasn't a complete success. Well, these are all experiments. They're all experiments. But yeah, it wasn't even good for all the Russian people either. Okay, I have time for just 2 more questions. Anything in the chat box, dear?
No.
Nope. Okay. So this is very elementary for your club. I hope it simulates a couple of you just to at least listen to the ISS. Gosh, tomorrow, or for that Texas pass is an excellent pass.
So Clint,
Yes.
there's a project, I'm going to call it, whose name I forget, that has special firmware for certain Chinese radios, I think, that builds in, I'm going to say it builds in the whole Doppler thing and automatically switches it for you once it knows what time the pass started. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it. I haven't delved a lot into the playing with firmware. We know how easy it is just to program center and 0.5, 0.10 above, 0.5, 0.10 below. Having it, but Yes, computer control, those commercial programs I showed. If you're sitting in the shack, 100 watts on the roof, computer rotation, you'll be working 1, 2, 3 degrees above horizon. Handheld, you're going to have more success, closer to 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees above the horizon. But yeah, automatic Doppler correction is there. It's exciting. There's some free, I can't remember the not donationware, but it's just freeware out there for some of these Chinese imports coming in.
Yeah, I'll try to find the name of the project, and I'll post it to the groups.io.
Cool.
We had a demo of that at one of our ham club meetings. There was a satellite pass about 7 o'clock at night. We all went into the parking lot. He just held the radio, pushed one button, and it was, he just pushed to talk, and he didn't have to fiddle with anything.
It wasn't that CSAT black box, was it?
Yeah, the SAT box for the icon.
No. This is a special firmware build that you load in certain Chinese handhelds.
The Quansheng or something.
Yeah, that is built for basically almost hands-free satellite communications.
Okay, sounds fascinating. Thank you. I'll watch your moderators let me into the group. I'll watch for that. We have time for one more question, then we're going to start part 2 and part 3 this evening. That's just a joke. That's just a joke, Bill. Anyone who hasn't heard the ISS think they might want to do it next couple of days? Does this sound something you might want to do?
Yeah.
Okay. The nodding heads, that made this all worthwhile for me, because once you hear it, you're going to want to, even though it's just basic 2 meter, 70 centimeter work, you're going to get the bug. You're going to get the bug. And you and I can work each other on SO50 when it's between California and Colorado. Texas, you and I can work, Texas gentlemen, we can work the ISS. No problem. KT5MR, I think. All right. Any last questions? Let me ask Bill. Bill, how did you find me, Bill? How did you? I'm 2 time zones away. How'd you find me?
So I'm kind of a AMSAT fanboy. I don't do a lot of operating, but I hang out with the guys at AMSAT. My college roommate is the current treasurer of AMSAT.
Wow.
So I have kind of a personal connection, and I get their weekly newsletter, which is very interesting, the email newsletter. And you are featured in there sometimes as somebody that gives presentations. So I sent you an email.
All right. Well, when you talk to the treasurer next, did I do all right?
Yeah, great.
Okay, good. All right. I
think
I
we're
am
probably
I am 6 meter illiterate. When I worked at HRO, we had the VX. Was it the VX5 that had 4 bands in it? I never sold it as a 6 meter radio because you needed a 14-foot antenna. So it's just something I haven't dabbled in. But you got me thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Here's a VX5, believe it or not.
Cool.
So thanks a lot.
Carl, thank you for the invite. I think you kind of realize I'd rather be there in person, and we'll do that one of these days. Thank you, Florida. Thank you, East Coast, Upper East Coast. Thank you, Texas, for being here. This is a great group, and please join their groups.io message board. Go back in the files. There's a bunch of good information in there on 6 meter work. Thank you for the invite.
Ireland's on here. Don't forget. There's an EI. There he is.
Stop that.
Yeah,
Stop
6
that.
kV.
Cool. Thank you, group. I appreciate it. I'm going to hang up. And you have some club business or something you do now? What are you going to do now?
No, we're done. We're done.
Okay. All right.
You wore us out completely.
Oh, jeez.
I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. K6LCS 7.3. Thank you, folks. What a cool group.
They were smart too.
Oh, I'm still on. Wait a minute. I'm still on.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, I think you cut off the recording now.
Yes, sir.
I'm still on. That's a great group.